up though and tell you there's a lot that preceded that journey, and how he got to that journey and how God used him in China. But Hudson Taylor was raised in a godly Methodist home. He was saved as a teenager. He ran across a tract that his father had been using in some of his own personal work with other people, and he read that tract and he was saved. Later, he would become a Baptist by the Bible, realizing that the Methodist Church had some traditions and things that were not in the Scripture, and he became a Baptist. He knew almost immediately that God was calling him to China. And when he left for China, he stepped out by faith. He had no support, and really was the only person on the sailing vessel that would go from England to China on the sailing vessel Dumfries. It was a terrible voyage. It's almost like Satan knew that God was about to begin a great work and wanted to stop him before he reached China. But the ship left England on September 19th, 1853. And now that's a 6-month journey. Imagine that, 6 months on a boat to get from England to China, because they would arrive almost 6 months later on March 1st. But right after they left England, there was a storm that battered the ship for 2 weeks right there on the coast of Ireland. And so that's how the journey started out, with a terrible storm that lasted 2 weeks. One experience is worth telling. The story is they were sailing, and they were in the vicinity of New Guinea. Not a place to stop. There were cannibals on the shore, and there was a wind carrying them quickly into the island and into the reefs that were below the surface. The ship would have surely sunk. They had done everything they could. Captain was in despair. He said, "There's nothing we can do. We're going to crash here and sink. We've done everything that can be done. We can only wait for the result. Our fate is sealed." And then Hudson said, "No, there is something that we have not done." He said, "There are 4 Christians on board." He goes, "Let each of us retire to his room in an agreed prayer, ask the Lord to give us immediately a breeze that will blow us out of this harbor. He can as easily send it now as at sunset." So he and those 4 Christians went back to their rooms. He prayed for a short time, and he said he received God's answer, and he went back on board. And he asked the first officer, who was a godless man, he said, "Let down the mainsail." He said, there's a breeze that's going to come. God has answered our prayer. And the first officer swore and said that would be of no use. He said, "I told him that we had been asking of God a wind and that it was coming immediately, and we were so near the reef by this time that there wasn't a minute to lose." So he swore again and began to walk toward the sail when the topmost sail began to ripple in the breeze. And the first officer put the rigging up, and God brought that breeze and blew him out of that harbor. Hudson said they could see the cannibals waiting on the shore. They had their fires burning already, eagerly awaiting the wreck. And God sent them on their way. But as I said, he arrived in China on March 1st, 1854. He said as he stepped off the boat, he wrote his diary, "My feelings on stepping ashore I cannot attempt to describe. My heart felt as though it had not room and must burst its bonds, while tears of gratitude and thankfulness fell from my eyes." He eventually found someplace to stay that night, but that was about the only thing that went his way for a while. The days and weeks that followed would be lonely and just dreary. Civil war broke out just days after he arrived, and he saw people slaughtered right in front of him as they fought. He struggled with the language, the almost it seemed impenetrable barriers of culture between himself and the Chinese people. But God had called him there for a reason, and eventually he would overcome most or all these difficulties. He would learn the language. He would translate the scriptures. He would begin planting local churches. He founded the China Inland Mission, and at his death, 205 missionaries in the China Inland Missionaries serving God in China. And China has been a very, very difficult land to reach with the gospel. As you know, even today, it's under communism. We have a missionary there that certainly serves God in an underground church, as the communist people will not allow, the communist government will not allow churches to thrive. Just, who would have seen what has become of China? And I'm sure we will not know until heaven the thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people that have been saved since Hudson Taylor went there about 150 years ago. And I want to thank the Lord for his ministry and what God has done there. And it's a reminder to pray for the missionaries that are there serving God in a very, very difficult land. Hudson's favorite verse was John 14:13. And it was his favorite verse because it was proven over and over in his life and ministry. And that verse says, and whatsoever you shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. Certainly proven that time on the boat and many, many times through his ministry there in China. So I thank the Lord this morning for Hudson Taylor.